Hello there. I'd like to talk about emergency preparedness today. It seems a bit strange. I'm sat here in the glorious sunshine with the totally blue sky. I remember when I was living in Gloucestershire, not that far, I guess, from the River Severn, huge river in the UK, and it flooded one year. This is quite a few years ago now, and we were left without water, without running water, for quite a few days. I can't remember quite how many days, but for quite a few days. And at the time, I remember thinking it must be particularly difficult for young mums with newborn babies to have no running water. And it was such that the government actually brought the army in to distribute bottled water. So we would all go to the collection point and collect all these bottles of water, because what had happened in the process of this river flooding and a lot of people having to evacuate their homes, the waterworks, the sewerage works had been flooded and kind of contaminated. So but the reason I'm telling you this is that from then on, I actually started to keep an emergency rucksack by the front door, just because I had a sense that we just don't know at any moment what could happen. We might suddenly need to leave the house with just kind of some basic provisions in terms of things like, some drinking water, um, and a few other bits and pieces. And there's no doubt that we are living in extreme times. Again, it's difficult to believe when I'm sat here on such a glorious day, but I know that many of us have experienced wildfires in our areas. Um, you know, um, High winds, maybe like tornadoes, hurricanes, flooding. There was a town not that far from here that only a few months ago there were cars floating down the hill. It was really quite quite something. And so I wanted to, on the one hand, encourage you to not kind of get caught up in fear. Having some emergency preparedness is not about getting caught up in the fear, and it's not about getting caught up in the drama. It's just about taking some practical precautions. And I know that many Australians during the horrendous Black Summer, I think it's called, were keeping overnight bags in their cars, in their vehicles. So I have a few suggestions, and I think some of these things you may already be doing. I think the pandemic has certainly encouraged us to think a little bit along these lines. One of them is to keep your store cupboard of kind of long life food, kind of keep that stocked up. So, and this is particularly great for any vegans amongst you, because of course, all the dry pulses, and the nuts and the seeds, the lentils, the beans, the chickpeas, they store really well. Um, just because we don't know what interruptions there could be to the food supply chain. We have this kind of just in time uh, system where at any moment our supermarket shelves could be quite empty. And I know that some people have experienced this during the pandemic, that there has definitely been a shortage of some products in our shops. And kind of related to that, if you're not already growing some food yourself, some vegetables, maybe even a little bit of fruit, I would really, really encourage you to start doing that. Even if it's just growing things in pots. There was one time a number of years ago where I lived on a canal boat for a couple of years on the Leeds Liverpool Canal. It was a beautiful spot, and I was growing just a few veg along the roof of my canal boat in kind of long, thin, rectangular pots. So you can grow a little bit of lettuce even on your windowsill, but I think once you start growing something, it's such a lovely thing to do. It's so magical to see from a tiny seedling or even a seed to see things kind of just the miracle of life and growth. Then it encourages us to do more and more. So yeah, I think the other thing that, and certainly probably people in the UK are doing this, have started doing this already because of the relatively recent fuel shortage for cars. I think there actually wasn't a shortage of fuel as such. It was just that there was a problem with the delivery and the lorry drivers and the whole system, if you like. And so a lot of petrol stations uh, kind of just ran out, and people couldn't get to work. It was, yeah, it was tricky. So what we're doing, what my husband and I are doing now, is that once our fuel tank in our car gets to half full, we top up. So we just kind of, we don't kind of go down below half, whereas before we used to kind of wait till it was empty before we filled up again. So it's again, it's not getting caught up in any anxiety about this. It's just doing a few little things that could help. The other thing that I would recommend, and again, this is because we don't know what kind of interruptions there could be, what hiccups there could be within our banking systems, and within, or not necessarily even in the banking systems, but even just in, when we get cash out of the wall, from a cash point machine at the bank, that's all dependent on electronics and um, kind of, yeah, just the internet. So what I think it's probably quite wise to have some spare cash in the house, just in case for a few days we can't actually get cash out. And yeah, I mean, again, these are things. Maybe these are things that you do anyway, and you might want to think about some kind of emergency overnight bag or rucksack, and just do a little bit of research about the most practical things to have in there. I remember when the tsunami happened in Japan. Um, the thing that people most needed was actually toilet paper. Ironically, I mean, that's like it's the one thing that people were trying to get hold of. And actually, I think even with the pandemic, I think at one point, and we didn't experience it here, but I think it happened in the UK, was that there was a run on toilet paper. So it's just kind of some things, and maybe you might want to have a flashlight. You might want to have kind of like a radio. Just a few things that could be useful in an emergency situation. So I'll just leave you with those thoughts. But, basically, we are in a time of global awakening of consciousness, and that awakening of consciousness is happening through crisis. So it's like as these crises happen in kind of in areas, in local areas, and then in like globally with the pandemic, this is the driver of our evolution of consciousness, of our awakening. And so we can certainly help ease the process if we have some kind of awareness of the type of emergencies, the type of kind of situations that we might have to deal with at the local level. So yeah, I hope that's helpful for you, and I wish you all the very best, and go well and stay safe.